Okay, so I haven't really planned out this video specifically, but I'm going to make it a little bit of an introduction. My name is Kevin, and I will be your microeconomics professor for this semester. I'm hoping we can make this a somewhat interactive experience. I've been teaching economics for about 3 years now, having studied economics intermittently since the late 1980s. So I have an impression of the economics, the classical economic theory that has been taught over the last half century, and that's what we're going to have a look at: microeconomics, the behavior of firms and households and individuals within economic systems, mainly focusing on firms, mainly focusing on profit-making enterprises, looking at the way that their costs work and the way that the environment that they work in will affect their decisions. And by the environment they work in, I mean, the number of competitors they have, the amount that their product is different from other people's products, the amount of what we call market power they have. Like, how can they set their own prices? Or is it something like, I don't know, beans, where you have to charge the same as everybody else because yours are the same as theirs? Or do you have something special like an exotic car that nobody makes anywhere? You're going to be facing different conditions depending on some of these factors. How many people buy the product? How international are you? How local are you? Like, all those things make a difference and will make a difference to the way in which you make business decisions. And so in economics, we're going to be having a look at that. How do people make decisions from a firm standpoint, as opposed to macroeconomics, which I consider to be more, and I do teach macroeconomics as well, where we talk about, how do countries behave? How do governments influence the overall economy and whatever? But in this course, microeconomics, we're going to look at the behavior of mainly firms in relation to households. So we'll look at some of the basics, and then we'll build on that throughout the semester. It can be an interesting topic if you apply yourself a little bit. This is an exciting time to be studying economics. We're going to do some reflecting on the world around us and the way it's working. And you don't have to look very far to find fascinating and interesting economic news these days. Let's just put it that way. So I hope we can center some of our discussions around that. I want to use a mix of us getting together virtually and you getting together as students. I've studied remotely. I did a whole real estate course, Ontario, RICO real estate course, and studied to be a real estate broker. And while I was doing that, basically they just mailed us a textbook. Here you go, see you at the exam, right? And so I started developing study groups, and I found out that when we are studying remotely, there is a power in collaboration. There is a power in, networking among the students. So I'm going to try to do some things that'll facilitate those relationships as well. If you get to know other people who are taking the course at the same time as you are, A, it may benefit your grades now, and B, who knows? These people could become business colleagues for decades to come. You don't know. So I'm going to try and encourage all of those things. I will provide as much direction as I can. Basically, I feel like a broken record because there are lots of people with material on any of the topics we're going to be discussing. If you look at the chapter titles and you enter those into a Google search or into specifically a YouTube search, you'll find all kinds of lectures on all the things that we're going to be discussing. So if you get serious and you want to know about these things, there are going to be other sources other than me. And in fact, the text that you use is a sketch There's a lot of color to fill in there too. What I do when I do live lectures is I fill in a lot of that color. I hope that we sort of bring it to life, and I'd like to be able to do that here online as well. So I'm going to use whatever resources I have to try and make this a positive collaborative experience. So please do some reaching out. My contact information is on our FOL homepage for your convenience, and I want you to use it. I want you to get in touch if you have questions. I like to meet remotely, so as I said, I'm going to be sending out some things. The more responsive you can be to the things that I do at the beginning, where I'd like to find out what your availability is for maybe 1-hour sessions where we do discussions. I mean, I'll do some lecturing, but we should do some discussing as well. I've long said that the doing side of economics, like there's a real doing side to this microeconomics, because you're all, a lot of you will wind up working within firms, and you want to know how their cost structures worked, right? But, you're going to be studying management accounting possibly at some point, and that's going to be another version of looking at the same types of problems. So you want to have that general knowledge and have a fix on how business works and how costs and revenues work. But another thing about it is that just general conversation, going to networking events or whatever. Let's be people who critically think about what's going on around us and contribute to the conversation from a place of research and knowledge and honest reflection, with some sort of theoretical grounding in how these people think. How are these profit-making enterprises that shape so much of our world thinking? We've made a conscious decision as a society to place in the hands of profit-making ventures the food supply, the communications, to some degree the education, healthcare. That varies in different societies, but it is all a business. All of those basic things, basic elements of shelter, homes. We put all of those basics of the survival of our species in the hands of this system of profit-making enterprises for the most part. We live in a mostly market economy. So most things are provided by those enterprises. So why we need to understand how these decisions are made, and when we are engaging in the conversation of our time, when we are standing around the water cooler and having our conversation about the economy of today, let's contribute from a place of having applied some critical thought to it. That's what I'd like to see. So that's what we're going to be doing here. That's what I'm going to be encouraging. I can get as wrapped up in the details as anybody else, and really, when you write your tests, they're really going to be about the details. They're going to be about the nuts and bolts of the information. It's not going to be, there aren't trick questions. If you stay awake, absorb all the material, use whatever other resources you want in order to understand the terminology involved. Basically, we're talking about terminology and getting a little deeper into defining things. We've all heard the term monopoly, or we've all heard the term competition. We've all heard these terms, but let's dive a little deeper into what they actually mean and what the implications are for businesses and human beings living in this society. So I'm excited to be doing this. As I said, reach out with anything you have. You will have this video as soon as you have access to the course. I'm not sure about the other materials. Right now, I'm looking at the architecture of our FOL site, and it's pretty sparse. So I apparently have some work to do. So we'll hopefully get that all put together. I'm leaving this video prematurely but let that serve as an introduction. You'll notice I am going to give you an assignment on creating a video introduction of your own and uploading it to a submission box, and or to a discussion thread, so that we can all get to know each other a little bit. We're not going to get the advantage of meeting in person. Maybe we can create, if we have a will to, we might be able to do some of those things at the college. But I think the reason that you are taking an online course is because you don't want to be committed to being on campus, and I respect that. So let's make the most of it. I'm leaving my video intro here, and we'll be getting you to do yours as well whenever the semester begins. So good luck with everything until then, and thanks for coming to participate in this course during the summer. That can be a challenging time where there's a lot going on, but I admire your resolve in committing yourself to this course.